What secret could ruin your life? Serious replies only. This won't ruin me because I've already went no contact with my mom, but it still hurts and is a big secret I've not told anyone. When I was a kid, I had asthma pretty bad. So, I'd be up all night, coughing constantly. My mom and I lived with her parents. We shared a room, so I slept in her bed often. When I was a toddler, mom would come home from work and lay down for bed, but I'd keep her awake with my coughing. Sometimes at night I'd be coughing, and she would hug me, so tight that I couldn't breathe. It would really distress me that I couldn't breathe, but I knew mom loved me so much, and I didn't want to tell her she was literally squeezing me to death, because I was afraid of hurting her feelings. So I'd just tell her that I loved her so much, and she would cry pretty hard after that. Took me years, after having my own kid and treating him gently, to figure out that it's actually pretty difficult to squeeze a kid so hard that they couldn't breathe. Mom is bipolar and has had other incidents of hurting people and abandoning those in her care that need medication and can't take care of themselves. So, I finally put it together and figured out mom would be so agitated with my asthma that she would try to stop me from coughing by squeezing me almost to death. And then she would cry out of guilt when I told her I loved her. About 18 months ago I was watching the movie Yes Man and decided I'd say yes to everything for 24 hours. I ended up taking an ecstasy pill in the city. Then this woman said, "Let's go do drugs," and I ended up buying and trying meth. It was in a crack house that was legitimately 10 meters across the road from the police station in the city's worst suburb. I then went to the casino and blew $1,000. Let's just say that watching Yes Man is a good way of getting yourself out of a rue. I get paid a 6-figure salary for a standard 40-hour-a-week corporate job for a massive well-known company. In a given week I do maybe an hour of actual work. The rest of the time I'm on Reddit or YouTube slacking off. I thought when I got this job that eventually someone would figure out I don't do anything all day. But here I'm 14 years later still doing fuck all and getting paid a lot for it. A while back, I was cheating on my wife with a coworker. It went on for months, and I never really cared for the woman I was cheating with. She was super hot, though. After a while my coworker started getting really crazy and threatening to tell my wife, whom I had a child with and a baby on the way, about everything. Obviously, I kept trying to cut things off because I realized I was making a mistake. She lost it one night and was freaking out and texting me telling me she was going to come to my house and a drunk driver hit her. She died instantly. No one knows I was having an affair and my family went to her funeral. Edit. Oh man. Sorry Reddit for answering the question honestly. Next time I'll remember to keep this to myself. Also thanks for the gold. Edit. Shout out to all the people who think I should have died instead and are encouraging me to go ahead and tell the one secret that would ruin my life. This secret is a bad one. When I was 15 and incredibly lonely one summer I decided to make an Cupid account. For those of you who don't know, that's a dating website for people 18 plus. I looked probably about 17 at the time, but I guess I could pass for 18. So I said I was 18 on my account. I got a lot of responses from guys instantly. There was this one that stood out to me. His name was James. He was a 22-year-old college student working at Tim Hortons, but me at 15 thought he was the most intelligent and beautiful person I've ever met. We talked for 3 months, and then he turned 23. Now the age gap was 8 years. After those 3 summer months of staying up all night we decided to meet up in person. It was Labor Day weekend when we met up. He picked me up from a gas station and drove me to his house. We lived 3 hours away, and I told him that my car didn't work, but really I only had my permit and no car. I honestly think I fell in love with him, and we hit it off completely. He was really attractive and different from guys my age. Guys my age would make fun of how I looked because they were insecure themselves and tease me a lot when they were interested in me, which just confused me. But James would compliment me and joke with me, but never made me feel insecure. I really loved him, but when the relationship progressed he was talking about having sex, and I told him that I was a virgin, which he was okay with. But after I turned 16 I realized that he was a 23-year-old man who could get in a lot of trouble if he was to sleep with me. I never told him my age because I knew he'd be disgusted with himself, so I just cut all ties with him all day. I figured it was selfish to keep him around. He needed somebody who could be 100% honest with him. So in March I basically blocked him on all social media and my phone. He didn't know where I lived, and I never saw or spoke to him again. It's been 2 years, but I sometimes stalk his Facebook. He's actually engaged now and graduated college. I'm so happy that everything is going well for him. I'm only 18 now, but I hope one day I'll find a guy who is as great as James. TLDR, I made an account on a dating website at 15 and formed a long relationship with a man who was 23 lying to him about my age. Edit, guys, if I told him about my age he'd be disgusted with himself. I was 15 at the time. I was picked on a lot in primary school. One kid, we'll call him Jonathan, got quite antsy with skipping ropes and used to whip me with them before chasing me with it if I ran away. He also called me some pretty horrible names. When I was 10 years old, the bullying was relentless and spread to multiple people bullying me. If I told the school, they would tell off the bullies, but the behavior would still continue. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. As Jonathan came charging towards me with his friends, ready to start whipping, for lack of a better word, I stood rigid with a plastic tennis racket and with all of my anger, spun in one complete circle. I didn't expect to move so quickly, nor for the racket to hit anything. I was quite weird and had poor hand-eye coordination when I was young, but the racket slammed straight to the side of his face, causing him to bleed quite heavily. He had to go home that day. I'm 17 now, and I've seen him a couple of times since. His head healed, but he sustained minor, temporary brain damage because of it. Prior to me reuniting with him, I genuinely thought I had killed him. I still hate how I caused all of this damage to him. Jonathan's friends were simply too scared to tell the teacher of what I did, for fear of how I'd react. Up until this point, I'd been intelligent, quiet and secluded. When I suddenly snapped and attacked, it came as a huge shock to them. They, mostly, stopped talking to me as well. People may tell me to try and reconcile with him, but the truth is that I will never ever forgive him for the crap he put me through for 2 years. Edit I, by brain damage, I mean minor damage. Nothing too crazy. His head did sustain a lot of damage in general, though. Edit second, just to clarify, the damage was temporary, not permanent. Edit third, thank you for the responses. I've spent all afternoon/evening reading and replying to them as best as I can. Edit fourth, some of you guys sound quite baffled by the fact that I could have done such a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that if you've built up bottled up anger for a while, it would all eventually come out as one huge lash out. People have also been questioning how this could ruin my life. The guilt really messed me up during my teenage years, even up to now. It pales in comparison to other posts, but oh well. I'm roughly 5 years into a relationship and still have no idea if I want to marry the girl. I'm in serious debt because of a drug addiction I used to have, of which my family didn't know I had. I'm almost 2 years clean now, but I can hardly pay any bills I have, and I'm afraid to ask any family member for money because I know I can't pay them back in the near future. I've been in a strictly sexual relationship with a first cousin for the last 5 years. We only ever saw each other once or twice a year growing up, before she moved to the other side of the country, and then never really saw or interacted with each other again until 5 years ago when she moved back. What started as us meeting up once in a while has become a regular thing in the last few months. It's escalated to the point where we are now sexting each other. I'm scared to death of what might happen if anyone in our family finds out, but I don't want to stop what's happening either. Here's the story. It all started out very slow before it escalated into full-on sex. I was informed by another cousin of ours and asked to help her move since I was free at the time. We started hanging out throughout that summer, and then one afternoon we had brunch and then went back to chill at her apartment. It was a super hot day, so we thought, let's just go indoors and relax and watch some TV or a movie. I can't remember what we were watching, but we were chatting the whole time too, just talking about our relatives and what we were looking to do with our lives and careers. After a while she kind of just leaned on me and got comfortable, and I threw my arm around her, almost instinctively, and were just hanging out like that for a bit. Eventually she gave me a lingering look that was kind of asking what's happening here, and we both went in for a kiss. We were both shocked that it happened, but we got over it fast and started making out and running our hands all over each other until my hand was up her skirt touching her through her panties, and then I realized what we were doing and stopped it from going any further. We both came to our senses and stopped before anything went any further. We decided to forget it happened and moved past it, but every time we met up after that we'd make out and push our boundaries until we eventually ended up having sex. Afterwards, we were meeting up regularly until we both got really busy with work and only met up on occasion. We completely stopped when each of us had a significant other, but would start hooking up again every so often when we are single. As mentioned before, now it's become a regular occurrence where we hook up multiple times a week, and we've been sexting with each other now. I joined a job that is known for being absolutely miserable and a good chance of me getting killed. I love it. I was suicidal as a teenager and I gave up, knowing I couldn't kill myself. Now I have a good chance of dying without me having to do anything. And to add to the goods, my family would get a whole lot of life insurance money if I got killed, so I could do them a lot of good becoming a corpse. If word ever got out, I'd be in a lot of trouble and probably pulled. I don't want it. I need this edge or else I fall into a horrible depression. I need the challenge and risk. Edit. For those who guessed, yes, I'm military. What's the most hurtful thing you've overheard about yourself by accident? My wife had a falling out with some friends of mine that she met through me. We had known them a long time, but I had known them for much longer. I was upset with her one night because they were always asking why she never came around anymore, but she absolutely refused to see them. I always thought it was because of this little side business project they went into together that didn't work out. So I'm driving my wife somewhere and I just start getting upset with her that she won't make up with them and move past it like they did, and it sucks that she never comes with when I go over there. So she finally broke and told me the truth. Every time she went over there without me, they would talk shit about me, putting down my personality, my humor, and much more. I guess they thought she would be okay with it, like a joking haha my husband can be such a insert something right. But she wasn't okay with it. She's not a confrontational person, so she never really spoke up, but she was disgusted by the way they spoke about me behind my back and refused to have anything to do with them. She had been letting me think it was all her fault and she took it because she knew the truth would hurt my feelings. And it did. It boggles my mind to still be thinking about this nearly 3 decades later. At a goodbye sleepover for my best friend who was moving out of the country, I overheard her saying to another girl, VBL is being so annoying tonight. I can't wait to leave. The other girl agreed enthusiastically. They thought I was asleep. I cried silently for an hour. Overheard my mom telling my aunt that she hated me as a person. I was 13. When I was in middle school art class, something funny happened, and I let out a loud laugh. I then overheard one of my childhood best friends whisper to another person, "God, I hate Trader 2488's laugh." I immediately looked at him and said, "What?" And he just looked down at the table, like he didn't hear me. This actually made me change my laugh. It's completely different from what it used to be. My grandparents whispering at the table about how terrible I am and how I'm a real mess. Then acted all normal and cozy to me. I was 14. I was copied into an email conversation where about 10 messages earlier one of my employees had described me as an idiot and suggested to the recipients that they didn't get me involved in the situation they were discussing. I'd always thought we got on well, and it knocked my confidence. My dad saying he expected my twin sister to do great things. Not so bad, until he followed it up with, "I don't know what we'll do about my name though." He still doesn't know I heard that, and I plan to keep it that way. I had just moved into my dorm for my second year of college. My roommate was my best friend since 9th grade. My stuff hadn't arrived yet, and it was my time to register, so I asked him if I could use his computer. He said sure. I sat down, and he had aim open to a conversation with another friend of ours. I didn't scroll up, but from what was just visible on screen, they were talking about how weird I was, and how awful it would be rooming with me. I closed it, so he wouldn't realize later I'd seen it, registered, and left. We still lived together that year, but we didn't hang out at all. We just cohabited. I never asked him to hang out as friends, he never asked me. Move out day that year was the last time we spoke. That was over 10 years ago. We chatted every day for 6 years, then haven't spoken since. I still don't know if I did, or said something to flip how he felt about me, or if he never really liked me to begin with. The possibility of the latter really fucks up your future friendships. Hell, the former does too, knowing apparently you're capable of unknowingly saying or doing something to throw away a 5-year friendship. Everyone I'd invited to my first sleepover laughing while reading my diary entries about how my dad had been abusing me. I'd left the room and one had gone snooping. It was worse when they wouldn't stop or give it back when I burst in and pleaded with them to. Then everyone laughed even harder. That was the first and last time I wrote anything real like that in a diary. I think this was 9th grade. A girl I had a crush on, but hadn't really talked to at all, was moving away. A few days before she moved I overheard her saying, "Yeah, I'll miss pretty much everyone. But I'll tell you one person I won't miss, Sanskrit." That kinda sucked. When my oldest sister died, my older sister was crying to my mother about how she felt alone. My mother was trying to reassure her and said, "You still have Vamped Vixen though." But my sister said, "Who cares about her? I want oldest sister back." I kinda get it, but this was around the same time my mother told me to my face that it should have been me who died instead, because I don't have a husband or kids like my oldest sister did. It seemed like absolutely no one wanted me in my family and they all wished I could have switched places with the one we lost. People wonder why I'm depressed now. Walked up on a bunch of people who I thought were my friends talking shit about me, saying I'm a loser and all this other shit. When they saw me they fell silent, and I just walked away. That really hurt, but I got over it eventually. Went out to a bar with some friends for a birthday party for my ex-girlfriend. She really messed me up when she left me, like really bad, but I was trying to be nice since she invited me, so I figured I'd go out and be there for a drink or two. So, a mutual friend who had been broken up with a few days before and was there, so as I made the rounds I talked to her and tried to do whatever I could to let her know it would be okay. I'm no therapist, but I did my best, yeah no. I knew what a bad breakup felt like, as I was also going through one, so I tried to help. Anyways, after I left the table I overheard her talking to my ex at the bar about me trying to give her advice, and she said, "Well, nobody has ever loved him, so what does he know about any of this?" And they started laughing. Don't think they know I heard, but I grabbed my coat immediately and took a long walk home. I don't need people like that in my life. Haven't willingly seen either of them since. Ha. Just 5 minutes ago, my coworker told me my other coworker told her she'd quit immediately if I got hired onto the position they're currently at. Up until this point, I thought this girl and I were best friends. I even shared my Netflix password with her. That bitch. Some girls thought I was asleep, and they were trying to figure out what's wrong with me because I don't know how to socialize. Edit. Why does everyone assume I was faking being asleep? Just had my head down on my desk because I was low-key crying because the class made no sense. I was 7 and basically poor trailer trash, but I asked my friend if I could stay the night. He called his mom to ask, and I overheard her say, "Tell him no, I don't want roaches and lice." Really cut me deep. To this day I have extreme anxiety about keeping my house clean. I couldn't help it, I was poor, and our roaches didn't pay rent, you bitch. Background: I'm 12 years younger than my older sisters, and I was unplanned. At age 7, I overheard my mom crying and saying I was the reason she didn't love my dad anymore / we were poor / why she isn't happy and that she didn't want to be a mom anymore. She said she didn't know how to love someone who ruined her entire life. It was Christmas Eve and she was drunk talking to her best friend on the phone. It broke my heart / spirit, and that was only the beginning of my awful childhood. Side note, I'm 29 now and moved out when I was 15 to protect myself. I have no contact with my parents and I'm fully aware it wasn't my fault I was born. But damn, this memory still fucks me up. My best friend's story, not mine, but figured it's worth sharing. We'll call her Carrie. She was born super premature, but she ended up completely fine, like you would never know unless you saw the pictures of when she was born. Anyways, when she was around 8, she was at the top of the stairs, head peeking through the banister, secretly listening to her parents argue downstairs about how her dad was too hard on her brother for his grades. Her mom says, "Well, why aren't you that hard on Carrie? She doesn't get straight A's either." And her dad responds, "Carrie was born premature, she's probably retarded." I went to school with a black eye and busted nose from my dear old dad. Child Services was called to do a home check. My dad and mom told the worker I'd done it to myself and I was suicidal and that I'd written in my diary that I wanted to kill my little brother. I didn't even have a diary, and of all the people I was close to, my little brother was number 1. It got me a black eye and an involuntary stay in a locked ward. I bailed as soon as possible. My dad's friend telling my dad that I, female and 16 then, was not that good looking. Asked him if he had saved up money to cover for that in dowry, money exchanged by parents to the groom at the time of marriage. Since that day no one could convince me otherwise. At my first internship, I overheard one of my supervisors ask the others if I was genuinely mentally handicapped. That hurt. Heard my mom complain about the Christmas gift I gave her a few years back. Seems small, but I don't know, it just hurt. I saw 2 girls that I roomed with for a short while in college had been publicly posting on Facebook about how weird, annoying, and disrespectful I was. Their reasoning was that I was taking an 8:30 AM class and only weirdos do that, and that I made a shit ton of noise every morning and disrupted their sleep. It hurt because I tried really hard to not be disruptive. I wouldn't let my alarm go off because I woke up naturally around the time it was scheduled and would just turn it off before it beeped. This was partially out of anxiety. I changed clothes in the bathroom, tiptoed everywhere, and wouldn't even eat or zip my backpack in the room because I wanted to be quiet. As far as I knew, neither of them woke up any of those mornings, and they never said anything to me about it. Not overheard, but actually read in a file about me. My mother passed away suddenly, and I received a file from my father that she was meaning to give to me. It was a psychological profile, along with it tests, personality tests and other stuff. This wasn't a surprise to me since I'm autistic and have been in therapy as a child. There was a part, however, about my family and their trouble with living with me. Especially my brothers and my dad were having problems coping and learning how my existing pained them was difficult. My parents got divorced basically because of me. My brothers were embarrassed by me. I'm doing better than expected. I was never supposed to be living in my own. There was talk about assisted living or even an institution, but somehow I managed to leave home as soon as I got 18. I got married, had kids, and even though I struggle a lot, I get by. I even have a good relationship with all my brothers, even though they still have trouble treating me as an adult. It's like always thinking everybody knows you're retarded except you. And then finding out it's true. Honestly, Dr. Matt 73 is like a 2 out of 10. Who thanks? If a tornado looks like it's not moving, it's moving towards you. Edit. Thank you kind strangers for the silver and gold medals. Tip. Pick a fence post light pole windmill road sign. any good upright thing, and take just a moment to see if the tornado is moving to the right or left of it. If neither, it could be very slow or even near stationary, but don't count on it. It's probably moving toward or away from you, and you're best off playing it safe by leaving rather than staying longer to see if it gets bigger or smaller. I worked for a short time in a bowling alley as a mechanic in the back. On these models there is a big arm on each machine that rotates, dropping the pin setter down and back up. The force is so strong that my boss showed me by putting a pin in its way. The arm smashed right through the pin and tore it in half, splintering everywhere. It didn't slow down. Do not run and slide into the pins as a joke and get smashed to death. Need to break a car window, aim for the edges/corners, not the center where the glass is strongest. Was taught this by a friend, who is a fireman. If someone has ingested antifreeze/windshield wiper fluid, then they can drink alcohol. Vodka is best, but anything will work to stop it from shredding their kidneys until they get to hospital. You can also drink vodka even if you haven't ingested antifreeze, and it will still protect you from antifreeze. We treat dogs with antifreeze toxicity with a vodka drip. I'm emergency vet nurse. A drunk dog is pretty comical, but you know when you poop the morning after a big night and it has that alka poop smell to it. Just imagine that, but dog shit. If you get lost and have a cell phone but it says you have no signal, try dialing 911 anyway. Thanks to the FCC, emergency calls will go through any possible connection. This includes all networks, not just your carrier emergency service channels, and even any available private networks, forestry, mining, military, ranching, etc. Also, if you're in a country where you don't know the emergency number, try 911 or 999 or 112 or whatever your country's emergency number is. Common emergency numbers will usually still connect to emergency services in other countries with other numbers. Ideally learn the number where you are, but if you haven't and need emergency services, just dial what you know. If you are ever being chased by a polar bear, take off an article of clothing and leave it on the ground as you run away. Polar bears have really bad ADD and they will thoroughly inspect your dropped clothing before chasing you again. In these instances, your decision is if you want to be mauled to death or to die of hypothermia. Would they be more interested in a Guxy jacket or a North Face? For hypothermia, shaking equals sucks, but we'll be okay. Keep warm. Silent and falling asleep equals bad. The body is giving up, and if they are taking their clothes off equals really bad. People in the final stages of hypothermia engage in paradoxical undressing because as they lose rationality and their nerves are damaged, they feel incredibly irrationally hot. They strip off their clothes to cool themselves down, as they are freezing to death. If you're in a pool and there's a metallic taste in your mouth, get out of said pool. There's an electrical short somewhere in the water. That's why I always taste the water before I go in a pool. I do it to see if anyone peed in it. I can usually tell by the 6th ounce. You need to chew an aspirin if you take one thinking you are having a heart attack. Does aspirin help during a heart attack? Never heard of it, so it is good to know. It works by reducing platelets' clotting ability. It generally won't get rid of the clot that's formed in your heart, but should reduce further clotting. The old standard was 4 times 81 mg aspirin. Now it's 2 times 81 mg, 2 small blue ones. If you ever get stuck in a rip current, don't panic and try to swim directly back to the shore. Instead, swim parallel to the shore until you are out of the current. Edit. Wow, this comment blew up. Thanks for the gold. By the way, this is what I meant by this comment. Waves crashing at the beach is normal. One patch of calm looking water with waves breaking on either side is not. That's where the rip tide is. Brown coconuts contain oils that cause dehydration, so drink the milk of the green coconuts. However, you can burn the husks of the brown coconuts to repel mosquitoes. If you come across a mountain lion, never turn your back towards them. They won't stalk or attack if they see your eyes/face. Was watching a show where they had to stay in the wilderness alone. The guy wore a beanie that had fake eyes in the back to keep the mountain lions away. Is this a legit strat? If so, that's honestly next level right there. Yes, some tribes in Africa do this with masks. They wear them backwards to keep away predators. Read this on here long ago and luckily haven't needed it yet, but if your poop or vomit looks like coffee grounds, go to the hospital immediately. It could mean you're bleeding internally. Edit 1. Vomit, not poop. Edit 2. Looks like poop is also a possibility. To be safe, if you are emitting coffee grounds from any orifice and you are not a coffee machine, get to the ER. Edit 3. There's a lot more coffee machines on Reddit than I thought. I mean, I knew there'd be some, but not this many. Edit 4. Many people have mentioned black tar poop is also possible bleeding. Get that shit checked out. Literally have them check out the shit. A pastor from my church growing up was in Africa wading across a river when a crocodile clamped onto his leg. The crocodile pulled him under the water and he probably would have drowned, except he watched the crocodile hunter all the time. He remembered the episode where Steve Irwin showed that there was a valve in a crocodile's mouth that was really sensitive, and if you pulled on it the crocodile would open his mouth and release whatever he was clamped onto. So my pastor reached into the crocodile mouth, found the valve and pulled onto it. He's alive because of Steve Irwin. The International Morse Code SOS is 3 short 3 long 3 short. If all you can do is tapping, then you have to add longer pauses between your long taps to distinguish them from short taps. Edit. My grandpa taught this to me when I was 6. It always stuck with me. If you have a firearm in the wild, 3 shots spaced 5 seconds apart will signal distress. If your garage door needs maintenance, leave it to the pros. Garage door springs can kill you if you remove them in the wrong way. Had one of the spring tethers rust away and snap, made the loudest noise that shook the whole house. Springs are dangerous. Don't fuck with them. Let's say that an overhead power transmission line fell down near you and the ground is live with several thousand to a few 100,000 volts, and somehow you're still standing. In order to get away, don't walk or run. Bunny hop or slowly shuffle, keeping your feet touching. Electricity flows based on difference of potential. If you walk, then the distance from the source of the electricity between your 2 feet will be enough difference of potential to shock you. But if you bunny hop away or shuffle with your 2 feet staying in contact with each other, then you might just get away unscathed. If a man is posing to fight by shouting and making sharp hand gestures, he's most likely just trying to scare you away. If a man is calmly walking towards you with no emotion in his face, run like hell. Grew up in a rough neighborhood. Can say this is fairly accurate. Also, real Jesus silent like lasagna. In a crisis situation, the first thing you should do is remind yourself to pay attention to what's going on around you. This will stop you from panicking, allow you to recognize potential solutions, and help you respond rather than freeze. The army veteran who told me this said, just tell yourself to get your head out of your ass. To save your kids from being abducted, teach them to yell, "Help, I don't know this motherfucker," as loud as possible to get everyone attention. A friend from high school was telling us one day that when he was 4, his parents taught to scream, "Fuck off, you pervert," if a stranger offered him candy, toys, a puppy, etc. He screamed this at the top of his lungs when he met one of his uncles for the first time. Always keep a standard or survival candle in your vehicle in colder climates. The heat from one candle is enough to keep you from freezing to death for as long as it's lit. Some survival candles last as long as 36 hours. If you are trapped in a fire in a building, stoop low. The breathable air will be near the floor. With this, never ever just rip open a door. If there's fire on the other side, guess where it's going to come? Feel the door handle with the back of your hand. The reason is if it's hot, you'll instinctively pull your hand away and any potential burn is on the back. If you grab the handle, normally the burn is on the inside of your hand, reducing your ability to grip things. As firefighters, we are taught to search rooms with the back of our hand, primarily because of potential electrical currents. If you grab an electric outlet and get electrified, your muscles will contract and you will not be able to release the outlet. If you touch the outlet with the back of your hand, you will automatically retract your hand. You don't have to pay money on any type of phone to call 911, so don't bother fouling for change if it's a payphone. By law in the US, all phones can call 911 without any charges. Even if you're in an office that makes you hit 91 or something to call out, 911 will get you to an operator. If it does not, that's illegal. All cell phones can call 911 too, even without a SIM card or plan, and all phones have an emergency call option where you don't need to unlock the phone to call. If you are at the beach on vacation and one day ask yourself where all the water is gone, far beyond the normal tide, run. This has actually saved lives in the catastrophic Christmas tsunami of 2004 because someone has paid attention in school. Oh, I've heard that story. Wasn't it a Dutch girl who realized a tsunami was on its way? British girl actually. Her parents didn't even believe her that there was a tsunami coming, but there was a Japanese man who recognized the word tsunami, the Japanese word for big wave, and convinced her parents there was one coming, and the family managed to save many people. A year later she was awarded on the same beach she saved people from. If someone is trying to kidnap you, fight like hell, make as much noise as possible and scream fire instead of help. Drop your entire body weight to the ground to make it harder to pick you up. Pee/poop yourself, squeeze their eyeballs out, bite their ear off, stab them with anything you have on you. Don't be kind at all. You never ever want to go to the second location, because you will not be coming back. Edit. If they do manage to take you and you are on your way to the second location, get as much of your DNA in the car as possible. Spit all over the place. Rip pieces of your hair out. Make yourself bleed. Anything. Try to feel the motions of the car and where it turns. You can usually tell if you're on a highway or back roads, and if you're familiar with the area you might be able to tell relatively where you are. To save someone else's life. 3 songs that have the right rhythm for CPR are Nelly the Elephant, Staying Alive, and another on Bites the Dust. Sing one of these and press down on each beat. Your dominant hand should be on top of your non-dominant and they should be right in the center of the chest between the nipples. Your shoulders and elbows should be locked and you should be using your whole upper body weight. Good luck my dudes, I hope you never have to use it. If you feel a rib crack, don't fucking stop. Broken ribs heal, stopped hearts do not fix themselves. If any room in the house has a strong scent of fish, check the outlets. Checking the outlets and plugging out whatever the hell is plugged in there could save your life from an electrical fire. I don't understand. Does an electrical issue smell like fish? This actually happened to me recently. Melting plastic can give off an odor very similar to fish, and I actually thought something died in one of our vents. After researching this smell, it was suggested that I go around the entire house feeling the wall outlets. Sure enough, one was hot to the touch, and after removing the unit I found where the wires had burned through their insulation and began to melt the plastic. One of the first signs of a heart attack that is not often talked about is a serious upset stomach. For us with anxiety, it's an everyday affair. In a life or death situation, or when you are outnumbered, which is the same thing. If you think about it, punch the throat of the attack/enemy as hard as you can, instead of the face. I was driving home with my dad about a month ago and we encountered a few deer. My dad said to me quizzica, if a deer is running across the road it's better to just hit it than to swerve and end up in the ditch. But if there's a moose that's in the road, swerve and go into the ditch. Hitting a moose is like hitting a brick wall. I don't think he's ever hit a moose in his life and I've never seen a moose in the wild, but it's still advice that could help me later. It's worth noting that if you hit a deer, your insurance has some evidence there was a deer and you will likely not be found at fault. If you run into a ditch, there is no evidence of cause, and your insurance will probably skyrocket. If you hit a moose, you're gonna die, so just eat the insurance hike. Your life is worth it. Not only are moose massive, they are built at a height where you will take out their legs and all 1,500 pounds of them will come right to your windshield. Never use water to put out a grease fire. Use baking soda or suffocate the flame with another pot/pan. I see videos all the time of people putting water on fires that start in their kitchen one with water because they're freaking out and are inexperienced in the kitchen. The fire will get 1,000 times worse if you throw water on it. Edit. Just to sum up some other options from below, the following things are also good for assisting in putting out grease fires. The lid for said pan that should be slid across the pot to create a seal for proper flame suffocation. A damp cloth or towel. Salt. A fire extinguisher, specifically a Class K extinguisher according to our experts below. Thanks guys. Apparently use this method only if you want to do a lot of cleanup and possible repairs, but you shouldn't be afraid to use it if necessary. And of course remember to turn off the stove. If untrained, choose a spear and not a sword or axe. Spears have numerous advantages and are intuitive to the point where a novice actually has a decent chance against a middling swordsman. Just remember what your high school cheerleaders taught you. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. A good offense is the best approach with a spear. This is cool, but I'm wondering what kind of situation you would be in where you have access to a variety of medieval weapons. I could see making a spear in a stranded survival situation, but call me Peter if I ever actually have to choose a spear to fight a swordsman. If you've been lost in the wilderness for days, upon your rescue do not try and down all the food and water in sight. The shock to your system could be fatal. If you're stranded with your car in a remote area, burn a tire to draw attention. Take tire out of car first, use the spare, kill the spare. The rule of threes. You can survive 3 minutes of severe bleeding without breathable air or in icy water. You can survive 3 hours in extreme heat or cold. You can survive 3 days without drinkable water. You can survive 3 weeks without edible food. So don't off yourself on day 20 without food. You've got one more day of survival. If you're lost in the wilderness, follow a river downstream to find civilization. Don't do this in Africa or arid places in general. Rivers tend to dry up and stagnate downstream, and you should go upstream to where there is more water and civilization. If you get lost in Africa, you're just fucked, river or no river. If the car starts to slide, don't hit the brakes. Better yet, take your car every now and then to an empty parking lot and get some actual experience driving on ice/snow, and not just straight line driving. Make sure you get some practice braking, steering, accelerating and so on. Do them all, both smooth and sudden. Combine them and so on. Even more so when driving and you are alone on the road. Slam your brakes every now and then to test them and remind yourself of your car's braking distance over various surfaces. In short, know your car intimately. What is the worst thing you've ever seen or heard in a game of truth or dare? When I was about 15 years old, my HS soccer team had a code girls/guys team spaghetti dinner that turned into a code sleepover. Maybe about 6 guys and 5 girls. We ended up taking a bottle of really cheap Mr. Boston vodka from this kid's parents, and all of us began drinking much faster than 15-year-olds should. I was beginning to feel pretty nauseous, but was determined to stay in the game of truth or dare that we had started. I was then dared to kiss the bare ass cheek of one of the more crude chicks on the girls team. As I pressed my lips to her cheek, she thought it would be hilarious to grab the back of my head and rip ass right in my face. The heat and smell were too much for my stomach to bear, and as I pulled away I barfed all over her back and ass. She totally deserved it. He might have been the first, but he certainly wouldn't be the last. When I was 15, a girl I was trying to date invited my friend and me over to her house, where she was babysitting. When we arrived, she was there with 4 of her girlfriends, including her one extremely slutty and rumored STI wielding friend. After drinking everything in the house she thought the parents wouldn't miss, we played truth or dare. Eventually, the girl I liked dared me to go have sex in the master bedroom with the slut. I passed and took truth, but my friend took the dare and went off with her. They came back out about 5 minutes later, and no one believed they had done anything. 9 months after that, everybody believed them. Now that's a story to tell their grandkids. And that, kids, is How I Met Your Mother. One of the popular girls in my high school admitted to regularly pooping in her hand. She took truth and was asked to tell an embarrassing secret or something like that. She said that she was always embarrassed whenever there was a splashing sound in the toilet when she went to poop, so she'd always poop in her hand and then slide it quietly into the water. She went from being a popular girl to being the hand poop girl pretty quick. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. I'd shake your hand, but I've learned that it's best not to. No telling what kind of shit you've been touching. Slide it quietly into the water. That's beautiful. Like launching a tiny model sailboat on its maiden voyage. Bon voyage and Godspeed thine tiny poop. May the seas be calm and thou sails be ever filled with wind. 2.5 years, and I still marvel at the types of posts Redditors are inspired to write. My friends and I loved this game in high school. One day I came up with the best dare. You had to be blindfolded, and someone would kiss you, and you'd have to guess who it was. Well, eventually everyone just wanted to play that game, so we did for a few rounds. There were like 8 or 9 of us, so one person would be blindfolded, and everyone would vote on who had to kiss them. It was always a good mix of genders, guy/guy, guy/girl, girl/girl. Welp, it got boring eventually because everyone was just doing a light peck on the lips. So we invented round 2. Round 2, you had to kiss them for 3 seconds and actually move your lips a little bit. Like a real kiss. Round 3, you had to make out with them for 5 to 7 seconds. Round 4, you had to use your hands and touch their face and shoulders. On particularly wild nights we would get to round 5, where you would have to actually straddle the person and make out furiously with them for 10 seconds. It was a great game though, and to be honest it taught me how to make out properly, because at the end we rated everyone's kissing. Round 26, ensure child support payments are successfully processed. Anal Ninja. When asked to present a deep secret about themselves, one of the really hot girls, this was high school, straight up admitted to using whipped cream to get her cat, aren't their tongues like sandpaper, to lick her. The awkwardness escalated exponentially like a nuke in the room, seeping into the very core of every living being present. That pussy on pussy action. That's gonna leave a whiplash. Edit, my gold hymen has been broken. I got dared to use a zipline that nobody had likely touched in decades. So we climbed up a mountain while wasted in the middle of the night, found that my friend was not bullshitting and that it actually did exist, used our zip on it and sailed over a 1500-foot drop. And then the thought occurred to me that I had no way of getting back, and I had not even brought a flashlight with me and had absolutely no knowledge of part of the mountain I was on. So I basically stood in place for 7 hours or so. I don't know if that was the worst, but it was definitely the most stupid, especially considering that the whole point of the game was to get with some girls who were no longer in a partying mood after I disappeared into the night. Genius move by your friend. That just makes me picture a guy sending his friend out on a zipline to infinity cackling manically, surrounded by hot chicks, while his friend just scoots away. Lol, ducking idiot. He actually did it. Alright ladies, let's go back to the cabin. Who's up for some naked twister? At age 18, while at a friend's house digging around looking for a lighter, he finds an adult toy in his single dad's room. It was one of those hot pink, sparkly dildos with the rabbit thing on it. Something that didn't really seem like a guy toy, and it was in the spare nightstand, so we assumed maybe an old girlfriend's or something. Fast forward a few weeks later, his dad is out of town. There are a few of us over playing truth or dare, and I dare him to do something to his dad's dildo. At first his face turned 10 shades of red embarrassed in front of everyone else, but then he manned up, grabbed it with a Ziploc bag worn like a glove, then rubbed some cut open habanero peppers all over it. This was a Friday night and his dad was supposed to be back Saturday. Saturday night rolls around and he, our other friend, and myself are all at his house, quietly, as the one sneaking in, and I had been drinking. This was roughly 8-ish. As the other friend and I stood in the driveway, we hear the most god-awful, blood-curdling scream. The type of scream that sounds like someone being murdered. We dash in just in time to meet our friend in the hallway as he flies into his dad's room. His mom, dad's ex-wife, is in the floor but naked, curled up in a ball screaming her head off. Apparently his mom and dad had been screwing around behind the family's back. A hospital trip followed, and after spending the night in the not knowing WTF happened, they ended up coming out in the open, getting back together, and then remarried. That was 12 years ago, and they are still together. For their wedding present I gave them a jar of habaneros that they still don't understand to this day. When I was 17 I worked as a summer camp counselor. The week of our orientation, before the campers arrived, all of the counselors were down by the lake when we started the game of truth or dare. Everybody was pretty normal except for this quiet girl that was a Disney freak. Everything Disney, pajamas, sleeping bag, hair ties, t-shirts, all Disney, all the time. Being 17-year-olds up in the woods, our truths and dares turned sexual pretty quickly. After finishing my dare I turned to her and asked truth or dare? Truth, was the reply. Okay, have you ever had sex? I asked. Yes, but only with one person. My father. One dare was to bake cookies whilst nude, but then we were out of sugar, so a follow-up dare required a second person going to the neighbor's door in underwear to ask for a cup of sugar. It worked and the cookies were delicious. Grad student neighbors didn't even bat an eye. They were probably like those undergrad dumb ducks. Oh well, back to studying. Man, life sucks. Source, was a grad student, hated it, was jealous of undergrads and their shenanigans. I got really drunk in a game with some workmates, and I had to get out my testicles and touch them against one of the other guy's testicles. Probably pretty tame compared to what else will be on this thread. It's not gay, unless the bull's it just falls under the rather wide umbrella of banter. Nope, I'm afraid you're gay now. Your membership card and introductory gift basket will arrive in 1 to 2 weeks. So since my inbox blew up, I guess it's story time. Well, it was at one of those teen church lock-ins where they have a bunch of games and activities, and you can't leave till morning. Well, I was sitting around with my group of friends there. I was about 13 yo. It was past midnight and all events were finished, so nothing really left but to shoot the shit. There was 7 of us, 4 guys and 3 girls. One of the girls suggested that we play truth or dare. Everyone agreed, all excited, and I was the last to speak up and said I'm game. That is when 2 of the girls, one was my crush, said at the same time, we kinda don't want you to play, could you go away? I was crushed. I slowly got up and went over to the SNES and looked through the box of games and found Zelda Link to the Past. I popped it in and played the rest of the night till morning by myself. What sucked was that it was in the same room as them, so all night I got to hear all the laughs and giggles. I got to watch them go off into the hallway. Each time felt like a stab in the back. So there's my sad story on how I was excluded in truth or dare. I choose dare. Group huddle, I dare you to go home and stay there. This got very sad. Okay, I dare you to like this video. I dare you to tell the complete truth in the comment sections. Let's kiss. r/AskReddit. Which celebrity is not as nice as they seem? Ellen DeGeneres. My dad works in the entertainment industry and says she's notorious for being awful with her staff and really not giving a shit about anyone but herself. Her staff also now have to sign clauses saying they can't say anything bad about her if/when they are fired or quit. There was some interview she did just before her Netflix special came out where she pretty much said she's not really a nice person and pretty much wants to be left alone. And that she's wanted to quit her show for a while and keeps getting talked out of it. Also, she stopped dancing on her show because she was tired of people accosting her on the street to dance with them all the time. I did a job with Emma Watson, and the rider from her people was insane. Temperature requirements to 1/10 of a degree etc etc. I prepared for the worst. I'm somewhat used to this. She shows up, probably one of the friendliest celebs I've met. I know it doesn't answer the queue, but it's the first one I thought of. I was preparing myself to be really sad, but this turned out pleasant. Luke Bryan is a pose cursed at my crew constantly. Post Malone was super freaking cool though, and took the time to thank all of us. Stage hands. Post Malone does seem like a real decent person. Posty is a sweetheart. His episodes on the H3 podcast are so sweet. I used to waitress at a restaurant that had some celebrity clients. This was years ago. Here is the rundown. Larry David, super nice, great tipper. Roger Waters, very nice, good sense of humor. He was a regular and everyone loved him and his wife. Alec Baldwin, donkey, sweaty in person. Kim Cattrall, really nice, had a really hot young guy with her. John McEnroe, pretty rude, but he had a million kids with him, so I guess he gets a pass. My cousin was a huge Ariana Grande fan, and one time met her at a concert. She showed Ariana her homemade t-shirt that she made especially for the concert, and Ariana just laughed in her face and said, "What is that?" and made my cousin feel awful about herself. It crushed her that her idol laughed in her face. She's not that sweet girl she pretends to be. Lol, the fact that people can't tell she was that mean girl in high school astounds me. Just watch her professional interviews. She acts like a diva. Will Ferrell, when filming Talladega Nights, he dined at a Charlotte restaurant with some of the production crew, including John C. Reilly. Apparently, whenever Will was addressed by the waitress, he would refuse to look or speak to her. Instead, he would look at someone else and say, "Tell the girl I'd like this." John was apparently mortified and tried to overcompensate by being extra nice to the staff. Broke my damn heart to find this out. He visits a particular ski town in Colorado quite often. I've never heard anything bad about him from those who met him. However, they do say he is very quiet and tries to keep the lowest profile possible. I used to know someone who produced a Tobey Maguire movie and claimed that he is not a very nice person at all. Anybody interested in looking into this should check out Molly's Game, a novel/movie about a woman who ran a high-stakes underground poker operation with some of Hollywood's biggest stars. In the novel, she specifically targets Tobey Maguire as her most troubling regular and has a lot of anecdotes about him just being an. In the movie, Michael Cera plays an unnamed actor that acts as an antagonist, and it's not so secret that he's supposed to represent Tobey Maguire. A few years ago I was with a coworker friend and Demi Lovato was at an event near where we worked. Now I did not and still don't care about her, but my friend was so over the moon for her and went on about how she had her book, how Demi got her to stop cutting, and so on. Demi walks our way and my friend starts to say things like OMG you got me through my depression, and Demi made a face, rolled her eyes, and walked around us. It broke my friend's heart. She never mentioned Demi after that. Chad Kruger from Nickelback. My buddy was at the Roxy watching some live music. Chad was in front of him. Someone else yells back quote Nickelback sucks back quote. Chad thinks it's my buddy, turns around and punches him out. My friend wakes up to find out he got punched out by Chad Kruger, which is the equivalent to someone urinating on your ego, but also a hilarious story. Long story short, he got paid out through private litigation because Nickelback was about to go on tour and Chad couldn't get stuck in Canada fighting the case or worse. Edit. Almost forgot the best part. When my buddy came to, apparently he said back quote, but I like Nickelback. Bill Nye. Granted, in the last few years he's revealed himself as a self-centered jerk, but I'm reminded of a story from a podcast a few months back. A girl was working retail at a clothing store and Bill Nye walks in. He ends up at her register and she says something to the tune of, "Hi Bill, I just wanted to say I appreciate what you did for getting kids into science. I grew up watching your show." Bill replies, "And look where that got you." This is the first comment that's dropped my jaw and I've been reading for almost an hour. Got him. I met Tilla Tequila outside a club in Vegas, 2015. She kept staring at the bag of peanuts I was eating, but she wouldn't say anything. I offered her a handful of peanuts and she became very docile, eating out of my hand for a few minutes while my friends joked and took pictures. Suddenly she bit my finger hard, right down to the bone, causing me to drop the bag of peanuts, which she grabbed as she scampered away. I was bleeding really bad, but the bouncer just laughed and said it happens every Saturday night. That, my friend, was a squirrel. You were drunk. It was a squirrel. Christian Bale was notorious for going off on someone while shooting Terminator Salvation. Bale looked like a complete asshole and douche when he cursed out / threatened to have fired some guy trying to help out on set. But after the incident, Bale came out and apologized, saying he was trying to summon an air of madness for his role as John Connor and has a lot of shame in how he treated the coworker. Also, after the incident, numerous actors and directors have come out and said how much they enjoy working with Bale and that his dedication to roles is inspiring and that the incident didn't reflect how he normally works with other people. So his script is kinda flipped. He was definitely perceived as some huge asshole, but in reality he sounds like a legit dude to work with. I guess you don't hear much from him anymore, but Gallagher, you know, the guy who smashed watermelons. I was in a venue while he was practicing for his show that night. He was cussing and swearing and hollering at all his stage hands and everybody around him. Now here's the funny part. We ran into him later in the hall. Told him we tried to buy tickets to his sold out show. He took us to the box office and got us promo free tickets. He also has an identical twin brother who apparently is a prick and straight up steals his act. May have been him. I met Daniel Radcliffe very briefly when he was on Broadway in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, post Potter. I waited at the stage door and he came out after the show to sign. He was so sweet and spent a lot of time with people. I had him sign my copy of the Deathly Hallows, but babbled something to the effect of sorry, I know you're not just Harry Potter lol, and he looked me dead in the eyes and said please don't be sorry, I'm so proud of Harry Potter and happy to sign it, and I told him I was really excited for the Woman in Black to come out lol, and he said thank you and let me take his picture when I asked. Super nice guy, really made this fangirl's dreams come true. It's heartwarming to hear that an actor whose work influenced a generation of pop culture is actually proud of it. I saw Dwayne Johnson at a gym at a hotel I was staying at. I made eye contact with him and almost shit myself. Instantly trying to be stronger than I was already, I wanted to muster up the courage to say hi to him. I didn't at all. I was so nervous I didn't know what to do with myself, so I froze. But he seemed like a lovely guy, and I spoke to his wife, bold move I know, who I didn't even know, and she said he was even better in person than on TV. Every time I saw him on that trip he was smiling. Big regrets, but I couldn't bear to bug him on his vacation w/family. It makes you feel better his wife probably spoke about you to him, so he at least briefly knew you existed. I met Seinfeld at a casino in Vegas 4 years ago. He wasn't nice. He was a snarky condescending comic. It was exactly the personality you see on TV. He take a selfie with us. We thanked and at the end said this is price of flying private jets. I actually thought it was a very memorable encounter. And I didn't think any less of him, even though you could tell he had zero interest in us. I met him when I worked as a photographer in Lake Louise. This description is pretty accurate. He was amused at the price we sold our photos at. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for I upload daily, and suggest what subreddit I should cover next. Thank you and happy travels.